and welcome to another episode of the Floridian Sports Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Today is a little bit more of a interesting episode, as being the playoff series covering Game 1 and Game 2 of the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the first two games didn't go Miami's way. Miami, unfortunately, losing the first one in overtime, 107-109. And Game 2, flip of a coin, total opposite of a game in Game 2. They lose 98-132. 34-point difference. How do you get that? Where do you go from an overtime loss, only down by 2, to a game where you're not even in it? Well, I'm going to explain that right now. I have Game 1 stats and notes, and as well as Game 2 stats and notes. And then I'll combine those two, give you a review for each game and where the Miami Heat are going right now as the Floridian team in this series against Milwaukee. And of course, Game 3 is tonight. It is May 27th. The game's going to be starting at 7:30. It'll be home court advantage for Miami, so I'll also go into how can Miami improve itself and what they need to do to win this Game 3. And hopefully Game 4 as well. So I'm going to go right into Game 1. Of course, as we all know, Milwaukee and Miami do have some history from last year. Last year in the bubble for the playoffs of 2020, they did win the series against Milwaukee 5 games in 4-1. Miami had some really great success in the bubble. As we all know, they went to the finals, won the East. Unfortunately, didn't make it well past the finals, but they were pretty damn competitive. Game 6, 4-2 against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It's a highly regarded duo, and they were really on fire in the bubble as well. So is Miami. So it was a very good season. And of course, at the same time, the Bucks were having a really good season that year. I remember when they were going into the series, they didn't even have Miami in 5 games, let alone Miami winning the series at all. It was Milwaukee and nobody else. No Celtics, no Sixers, no Toronto. It was Milwaukee and nobody else. Everyone thought that Milwaukee was just going to go pass by the playoffs, and it was just going to be Milwaukee and whoever comes out of the West. Total different story when that happened in the second round. Miami does beat them and go on to the Eastern Conference. So it's a little bit of a revenge series, this one being, a lot of anticipation. Is the Miami Heat still the same team as they've been in the bubble? Or is it just the bubble that made them? And they had to answer those questions. Unfortunately, they did lose those 2 games. However, I'm going to go right into Game 1 right now. I'm going to tell you, based on the notes, how that one went. Now, as I said before, 107-109 Milwaukee winning it. It was a really close game. The defense really let this team into the game. Milwaukee, they have really great offensive chemistry. Ball movements really well. A lot of the bigs on that team. I think the shortest guy they have on that lineup, besides Forbes on the bench, 6'2", 6'3". Now, if you have that type of height, you also have that type of body. I know Drew Holiday definitely does post up most of the guards on Miami. Kendrick Nunn's having some issues this series. I know he was starting this game. He only had 10 points as a starter. And sure, he only played 22 minutes. And compared to Dragic, Dragic, he should be starting in my opinion. They give him 34 and 39 minutes. Just about 35 minutes, he drops down 25, which is the most points in that Game 1, right behind Duncan Robinson, who was hot from the arc. Duncan Robinson, he has 24 points here. And I'm looking straight off the notes. 7 and 13, and guess what? Not only was that 7-13 from the field, it was 7-13 from the 3-point line. He was on fire in the perimeter, only shooting from the perimeter. So it was a really close game after the first quarter, 24-22. So it's only a 2-point game there. Second quarter comes in, still a real close game. Miami having the lead at the half. Later on, the third quarter, 28-27. So each and every single quarter is within a point or 2 of each other. Then Milwaukee, they almost won this game at the end. Didn't have to go to overtime. They almost won this game at the end. However, Jimmy Butler does answer back. Jimmy Butler on a really great drive-in. Doesn't really pick up his dribble at all to do the 2-step. He just pounds it, leans into it. And that lean-in, I remember, Antetokounmpo was guarding him. Antetokounmpo was well behind him when he did that lean-in. thrusting him forward. I don't even think he did the layup inside the paint. Brook Lopez was on the outside, was anticipating him to at least be inside the paint for he can be able to reach out for the block. Brook Lopez having that large wingspan that he is, about a 7-footer. And Jimmy Butler got the best of it, and he made the right play there, bringing the Heat to overtime. And it went, as expected, neck and neck. I'm telling you, this game, the lead didn't get past more than like 3 possessions, 2 possessions. You know, it was back and forth. In overtime, it looks like here, Miami had 8 points in overtime, Milwaukee having that 10 points in overtime. And of course, as we all know, Middleton, as weird as he looks, as strange as it is, he is an all-star and he should be respected in this league and especially in this series. It's a really good matchup, especially, as I mentioned, Middleton against Duncan Robinson. I really like to see that. And this game one was definitely an example of that. Middleton, you know, he takes off the ball. He has a little isolation play. Of course, you know, Robinson is there on him. Ariza's on Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez does leave a screen. And for a split second, it's like Duncan and Ariza, their eyes connect. For some reason, no one knows where the hell Middleton went. Well, Middleton went to the right side on top of the free throw line. He fades off a shot. Still kind of contested, but just a little split second of the confusion off the screen. It made all the difference. Middleton does make that jumper, and they win the game by 2 there. Now, this game was heavily defensive, as you know. Both of these teams are the best top 5 defensive efficiency based in the NBA for the regular season this year. Of course, defense is really what brings this Miami Heat team into these games against these high-leveled offensive teams. Of course, they didn't knock down any jumpers. Just didn't knock down any jumpers. I felt like they played really, really sloppy in the beginning. I remember Bam Adebayo had a jump shot in like the first 2 minutes, hit the backboard. You know, I guess the playoffs and you have a lot of, you know, expectations, but you gotta relax. You gotta relax. And unfortunately, they didn't relax in this next game. This game 2, they just let it go. That first quarter. Now, this is kind of an historic game. If you're Milwaukee, though. Unfortunately for Miami, it was historic as well, but not in the good way. The Milwaukee Bucks, they make 78 in the first half. At the first half, we have a score of about, let's see this right here, 78-51 in the first half. That's the most the Miami Heat have let an opponent score on them in the playoffs ever since the San Antonio Spurs. And of course, this is something that, you know, it's really rare. It's really rare to see a Miami Heat team allow more than 60 points in the first half. This is a hell of a defensive team, and defense is kind of, you know, the role that they play, especially in an Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley type of, you know, era that they've been in for the Miami Heat in these past couple of years. Unfortunately, defense really wasn't there in the first quarter. It was there for everything past that, the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Some aggressive and some frustration was, you know, on showcase for Miami. Unfortunately, for the first time in a long time, Trevor Ariza and Kendrick Nunn both got flagrant 1 fouls. Dragic did get charged for a technical foul in the fourth quarter as well, because the lead just expanded. And, you know, I mean, how can you not be frustrated with your own self and your own team at this point in the game 2? When you're in a really tight playoff series, you're going to be 0-2 in the series. And how can you not be frustrated? You got to leave, you know, showing some grit, some grind. And unfortunately, you know, that grit and grind really wasn't enough to bring them back. To just show you the comparison, though, I have to let you know the first quarter was really what made this game. Besides the first quarter, this game would have been really much like the first game as well. I mean, second quarter, 31-32, Milwaukee by 1 point if you start from the second quarter. Third quarter, 27-29, Milwaukee. Only 2 points if you start from the second quarter. And then fourth quarter, 20-25. Milwaukee still winning it if it would have been starting in that second quarter. However, it would have been a close game. Now, imagine the first quarter didn't happen. Let me tell you the ending of the score after the first quarter. 20-46, Milwaukee. 20-46. The Miami Heat got outscored by 16 points. By 16 points. They got outscored in just the first quarter. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't even see a lot of teams picking out lottery balls get to even 46 points after even a half of basketball, let alone 50 or whatever. You can't allow 46 anyway. That first quarter, it made the game. If it wasn't for that first quarter, let's say Miami's like, it was 20-22, 20-24. Miami's still in the game down by 4, and they can make an easy comeback. If you ask me, the second quarter and the fourth quarter, they could have put the intensity up there because they let a lot of the bench guys come in, especially in the fourth quarter, of course, being blown out by so much, getting ready for Game 3. But this is a game that Miami should have, that first quarter decided everything. They should have fought. They should have fight. They were within 20 points in the second quarter, and then, Brian Forbes coming off the bench, he makes those ridiculous threes. I'm reading it right now. 22 points. 22 points, went 8-12, and got 6 3-pointers. Now, he's just one part of Milwaukee's perimeter shooting that night. Let me read this to you as well from the notes. Let's see here. Milwaukee, 22-53 from 3-pointers. Now, for Milwaukee's franchise, that's the most ever made in a playoff game for Milwaukee's franchise. Milwaukee had the most points they ever had in a playoff game in a half. The most 3-pointers that they had ever in a playoff game. And I just think about the biggest lead that they ever had over another team in a playoff game, too. It's a franchise night for Milwaukee. They're partying out in the streets. I'm pretty sure the 70s club is like going crazy right now. I mean, 70s club, 70s show. Can't forget about that one. Now, the thing is, though, to me, that I see mostly from this series, though, from the first 2 games, Miami needs to be aggressive. The reason why Milwaukee was so perfect defensively, guarding on Bam and guarding on Jimmy Butler, the reason why we're not getting playoff Jimmy yet, the reason why we're not getting Bam Adebayo 25, 20, at least 20 plus points in this playoff, they're pythons on our guys. It's literally no air type of defense, and we did the same thing to them in Game 1. We made them uncomfortable. Game 2, they weren't uncomfortable. A lot of switches. Guys were double teaming for some reason, which only leads to a swing here, swing there, and somebody's open on the wing just like Forbes was. He was open for about 4 of his threes. And I remember one of the threes he had, basically 3 guys before him missed a 3. Offensive rebound here from Brook Lopez. Offensive rebound here from Chris Middleton. They're not playing aggressive. They're not playing with fight after that first quarter. And the thing is, though, they can still come back. You're down by 16, 20-46. You're down by 16. I saw the New York Knicks come down from 15 against Atlanta and win that game in New York, which is also a really entertaining series. But we're not talking about that right now. We're not talking about the rivals in New York. We're talking about the Miami Heat and their issues against a Milwaukee team that they beat in 5 games last year. What happened? And how can they fix this? Now, they're going to Game 3 in Miami right now. Obviously, the crowd is going to be a little bit different. It's the most fans that they had ever since the pandemic started in American Airlines Arena for a Miami Heat game. So it's going to be highly anticipated. And I just know they have to win that game because you're going to be down 3-0. I mean, even if you win Game 4, you're not going back to Miami to a Game 6 if you make it out of there. I'm hoping this at least lasts to 7 games because I would love to see this series expand itself, But this is a must-win game in Game 3. And they have to do one of 2 things. Aggressive defense, match Milwaukee. Or they got to go and make those jumpers or switch it up offensively. The first game, they had a bunch of jump shots. I guess they didn't want to go in the paint because Brook Lopez and Antetokounmpo are down there. We were, 2 of the best shot blockers in the NBA. Mostly Antetokounmpo, of course. So they decided to go with jump shots. Jimmy Butler missed a lot of those jump shots. Bam Adebayo missed a lot of those jump shots. Just drive in there. Get in there. Draw some fouls. Brook Lopez, he's having a hell of a series. In Game 2, he was playing only 23 minutes. Didn't even get more than 15 points. But he still is a factor for that team. Defensively, Bam Adebayo cannot do much against Brook Lopez. Majority of Bam's shots came out of offensive rebounds or something where, Brook Lopez was even on the court. If you ask me, Brook Lopez, the only way that he really does get solved is if Bam Adebayo ends up doing what he should be doing. Driving in, doing a little post move, no little post fade, Bam, bam, slam it right there. Get the job done over Brook Lopez. Foul him out. I would love to see Bam Adebayo get a poster on Brook Lopez of him fouling out with 6 fouls, and in the beginning of the third quarter at least. Without Brook Lopez, the paint is wide open. Jimmy Butler just drives in there. Makes a lot of opportunities, a lot of double teams coming in, collapsing in the paint. Have perimeter shooters like Dragic out there, like Robinson out there, and hopefully Tyler Hero, if he does wake up from this slumber he's been having the entire season, they can win this game just off the paint. I mean, one example of reason why Game 2 was so separate is because of the paint. Let me read this off the notes right here. In the paint, they got out-rebounded 61-36. In the points in the paint in general, I don't even have to look at the stat. I just know they got out-rebounded by half. They probably got outscored in the paint by 3 times of their actual shots in the paint. I can guarantee you that. I don't even have to look at the stats. They need to protect the paint. They need to go into the paint. They have to win by the paint. The perimeter shot of Duncan Robinson, yeah, sure, it's good. Duncan Robinson gets 25 here, gets 24 here, but you're still losing the games. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Milwaukee blows you out. Doesn't matter if they win in overtime by a jump shot from Middleton. It's still a 2-0 series. Who cares if Duncan Robinson goes 0-19 or whatever from 3? Who cares if Jimmy Butler goes 4-10 from the 3-point shot? It matters if you win the paint and you win the game and you tie up this series going to Game 5. They could win Game 3 and Game 4, but they had to work through the paint. They got to be more aggressive offensively. Got to be pythons out there. And the one last thing, as I mentioned before, they got to make sure Brook Lopez fouls out because Brook, he will contain Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo needs to own Brook Lopez in this Game 3, and I'm praying that Brook Lopez fouls out sometime soon. Now, I want to thank you again for joining me for these reviews of the first 2 games, as well as talking about Game 3 and building up for Miami and what they need to do. Now, as usual in the playoff series, I'll probably make another episode after the next 2 games of give you a review for Game 3 and Game 4 of this Miami Heat-Milwaukee Bucks series. Hopefully, I can build up something for Game 5 and Game 6 and maybe even a Game 7. I expect it to be a really fun series still, but Miami needs to act now. So I hope you have a good night and hope to see you again.